I recently had the opportunity to give a little tour of our parish church to a Lutheran group. It was some ministers and some staff from a local church that were also looking to renovate their church, and they wanted to hear a little bit about our process of renovating our church. So it was really a beautiful experience to get to walk through that space and even have some theological conversation about decisions that we make as Catholics when we're designing a church. And one of the questions that came up is, why did we build a permanent altar? Why didn't we consider building a temporary altar or a movable altar that could be moved out of the way and then let the space be used for something else at a different time? That's a really interesting question. I remember when I was in college, I went to a church sometimes that had a movable altar. They would roll in the altar and they'd roll in the pulpit, they'd celebrate Mass, and then afterwards they'd roll everything out and then set up for a spaghetti dinner in the same space. But that was for a college campus ministry, and that maybe worked for that time and space. But if you go around to most Catholic churches, you're going to find a permanently placed altar. Especially in our new renovated church, you'll see that we have a very heavy, beautiful stone altar in our sanctuary now. So why? Why do we as Catholics usually have an unmovable, very heavy altar right there in the center of the sanctuary? I would start by saying that when we see a permanent altar in a sanctuary, it's a sign that this church community intends on staying here, right? We're not planning on moving to another space at some other point. We are here, and we're here for good. We are bringing the Lord into this community, into this neighborhood, into this city, and we're bringing the Lord with us. And the Lord is permanent. The Lord is strong. The Lord will always remain with us. So you could say that a permanent altar is a sign that the Lord remains with us, and the church that He has given also remains with us. You could also say that since the Mass happens on that altar, right, the liturgy of the Eucharist is celebrated on that altar, it's a little bit of a reminder of the permanence also of the Eucharist. Remember, Jesus said, "I will remain with you always," and He gives us the Eucharist and says, "Do this in memory of me." So over and over again, as we celebrate the Mass, we are remembering and we are making present again our Lord's sacrifice on the cross and the Last Supper, and it's all coming together again and remaining with us. The Lord continues to stay with us in a permanent way in the gift of the Eucharist. An altar has always been a symbol of sacrifice. Yes, it also has maybe a little bit of an element of meal, as we also are remembering the Last Supper a little bit, but this is primarily about sacrifice. Animals were always sacrificed. Lambs were sacrificed on altars in the Old Testament. And so when we see an altar in the sanctuary, it's a reminder for us that what we're doing in the liturgy, what we're doing at the Mass in particular, is we are remembering the one sacrifice of Christ, the one permanent sacrifice of Christ given to us on the cross. And that's why that altar remains in the sanctuary as a permanent sign to us that what we're doing there is not just prayer, it's not just community, it's also the one sacrifice of Jesus Christ. And I would say that those altars that are built out of stone, like ours happens to be at Risen Christ, is also a reminder that Jesus is the living stone, right? He is the foundation of the church. Maybe it's also a little reminder of that parable that Jesus gives about the one who builds his house on sand and the one who builds his house on solid rock. The winds come and the storm blows the one down, but the other one remains because it's been built on a solid rock. In a way, when you see an altar built out of stone, it's a bit of a reminder of that our Lord is the solid rock upon which we've built our entire faith. The altar at our parish becomes a focal point for us. It helps us to focus on Jesus in the Eucharist. It is a reminder for us of Jesus's permanence in our lives, and it stands as a celebration of Jesus's victory over sin and death.